The game situation was disappointing to me. You know, I put so much time and energy into that project. I worked hard on that project, man. I recorded 6 records on that album.
What was the spark which lit the fire, which caused the fallout?
People, the streets are saying that the documentary was better than the massacre, which it is, and 50 got jealous and kicked me out of G-Unit, and he thought that he could do what he did to Ja Rule to me.
You see the title, you know what it is. It's time to tackle what many would call one of the biggest rap beefs of all time, 50 Cent versus The Game. I'm sure you all know at least some parts of the story. Dr. Dre and Interscope co-founder Jimmy Iovine put The Game in G-Unit and things were okay, and then a year or so later, bang, things get turned upside down, diss tracks are going left and right, and a shootout occurs. Why did these things happen though? Let's take it from the top. Before we dive real deep into it, however, make sure to subscribe to the channel and check out the links in the description to follow on other platforms as well. In 1998, Queens rapper Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, had his breakout feature on fellow Queens group Onyx's single, React, from their 3rd album, Shut 'Em Down. Then he starts recording for Power of the Dollar, which was supposed to be his debut album, and then in May 2000, a shooting happens outside his grandmother's house where he is hit multiple times, leading to him being dropped from Columbia Records. Power of the Dollar was shelved and never officially released, but was bootlegged. Some of the tracks also wound up appearing on G-Unit mixtapes and 50's official debut album later on. Around this time, he formed the group G-Unit with fellow Queens natives and friends Tony Yayo and Lloyd Banks. They started releasing mixtapes to build a buzz, like 50 Cent is the Future, No Mercy, No Fear, and God's Plan in 2002, and then in 2003, Nashville, Tennessee rapper Young Buck joins the group and they released their debut group album, Beg for Mercy, which wound up going double platinum. Game joined the group late in 2003 and didn't join in time to appear on any of the songs. However, he does appear in music videos. Game's first appearance on a G-Unit track would be on their mixtape G-Unit Radio Part 3, Taking It to the Streets, on the track It's So Hard with 50 Cent and Lloyd Banks. Game then appeared on Lloyd Banks' solo debut album The Hunger for More, which was released in June 2004 on the track When the Chips Are Down. Then he was also featured on Young Buck's solo debut album Straight Outta Cashville, which was also released that year in August on the track Stomp. Work then began for Game's major record label debut, The Documentary. In January 2005, the documentary was released, on which 50 Cent and Dr. Dre are executive producers, and 50 has writing credits on 6 songs while being featured on 3 of the singles of the album. Basically, 50 had a fair amount to do with the success of the album, which wound up going double platinum. Also at this time, 50 Cent was beefing with multiple rappers like Ja Rule, Jadakiss, Fat Joe, and Nas. I've covered most of those beefs before, so check those out after this for the details. The problems with 50 in The Game started due to Game not wanting to jump into the beefs that 50 Cent had with these artists, as he stated that he respected rappers like Nas and Jadakiss. Game had an interview in February 2005 in which he stated that he wouldn't get involved with 50's beefs. Apparently 50 didn't like that too much, as shortly afterwards, when he was on Funkmaster Flex's show on Hot 97, he talked about how Game was on the verge of being removed from Interscope until he stepped in and helped The Game out with the documentary album.
It was the truth. It was getting dropped. It was being dropped from Aftermath Records, man. They asked me, why else would they let me be a partner on a record that they had signed for 2 years? You know what I mean? Creatively, it got stuck in the mud with it, and I came to help the car move.
He then went on to publicly kick Game out of G-Unit right then on the radio. During the interview, Game and his entourage came to Hot 97, and this is when the infamous shootout occurred.
Well, we got it. Let's go.
Enough's enough?
As Tony Yayo said on his appearance on Math Hoffa's My Expert Opinion, they're the reason Hot 97 is called Shot 97.
We the reason why they call that shit Shot 97, nigga. We the reason. G-Unit. Who else? We the reason they call that shit Shot 97. Thank God the cameras wasn't all that back in the days. I'ma leave it there on that note, nigga.
During the shootout, someone from Game's entourage was hit. I can't even say this is one of those beefs where things stayed on wax, as it escalated to violence on day one before diss tracks even started going back and forth. Shortly afterwards, on March 9th, 2005, the 8-year anniversary of the death of the notorious B.I.G., the two agreed to make peace. Shortly afterwards, 50 Cent released the music video for the single Piggy Bank from the Massacre album, which had been released earlier in March. Speaking of the Massacre, this would be another reason there was tension between the two, as 50's album allegedly was pushed back from February to March in order for them to focus more on Game's album, on top of the fact that 50 Cent contributed to the album, as songs that he planned to put on his album were given to the Game instead to help him out.
They pushed it back because we was doing too good with Game's record. And I'm like, yo, like you gotta think, Interscope was, when East Coast, West Coast was going on, Interscope was the West Coast. So there is some uncomfortability with me being from the East Coast. That I'm not even conscious of initially. I'm going like, yo, they're like, yo, they love that they're doing extremely well like that, but they're going, damn, why we can't have one like from here? You see what I'm saying? Like from Dre's perspective, it's why we can't have one from the West Coast like that, and it's that's the assignment.
So when Game started moving, they was like, wait, Fifth.
To build that. Like once that record is out and it's selling, they're going, wait, we don't want to cut the legs off of this. And you're going, but that's rearranging my presentation, what I'm doing. So now I wouldn't have given him things that was so good if I felt like it was going to alter what I'm doing.
In the music video, there's a scene that features the Game as a Mr. Potato Head toy, clearly poking fun at him. The album also features the track Hate It or Love It, G-Unit remix, as the original version was a single from Game's album. I think that track might be the only official song that features the whole group. Just like the documentary, The Massacre was also highly successful, even more so as it sold over 1 million copies in less than a week. After this, the diss tracks began to pour out. Just like with the 50 Cent and Ja Rule beef, there were a lot of tracks going back and forth. Let me know in the comment section below which one is your personal favorite. There's a lot of diss tracks that went back and forth between Game and G-Unit, so while we will be going through most of them, don't expect an exact order of which one came right after the other. Despite the two allegedly deading the beef in March, things were clearly not great between them, as G-Unit didn't have much positive to say about Game after 50 kicked him out the group. The beef between the two escalated in June that year when Game made an appearance on Hot 97's Summer Jam. Suffice to say, Game didn't have anything flattering to say about his former group either. This is also where Game started the infamous G-U-Not campaign, as in G-U-Not, like G-Unit isn't gangsta, which is something he would use in several diss tracks. Shortly afterwards, Game released the mixtape, You Know What It Is Volume 3, which featured several diss tracks aimed at G-Unit. The cover of the mixtape has Game wearing a G-U-Not hoodie and holding 50 Cent's decapitated head, a pretty clear message. After the intro is the track 300 Bars and Runnin', one of the most well-known diss tracks of the whole beef, as well as the longest track too, as the song is over 13 minutes long. The funny thing is, before Game starts rapping, he says, "Just loan me your ears for 15 minutes. However, the track falls slightly short of being 15 minutes long. Maybe Game should have just added a few more bars. Maybe 310 would have made it long enough. In typical Game fashion, he name drops a bunch of people here like Jay-Z, Memphis Bleak, Beanie Sigel, Ludacris, and more. He also sends shots at the Philadelphia rap duo Young Guns from the group State Property while he's at it. Throughout the song, Game raps over a bunch of different beats, including Takeover by Jay-Z, Diamonds Are Forever by Kanye West, and Shook One's Part 2 by Mobb Deep. It's easily one of my favorite diss tracks of all time, and one you'll probably find on a lot of lists of top diss tracks. As far as I know, this track is also the longest diss track in hip-hop history till that point. Following 300 bars and running is the track Down, which has Game rapping over the beat for the Cameron single Down and Out from the Purple Haze album. This track is aimed at Lloyd Banks in particular, as he starts off the track mentioning Lloyd's mother and sends the first lines in the song right at him. He then goes on to rap about what happened at Hot 97, like getting kicked out of G Unit and heading down to C50 with 30 people and the shootout, and how one of them got shot, and talks about getting pulled over and going down to the police station. The next track on the mixtape is Poison Bananas, which features Cicero and M.O.B. The chorus and title of the song are a reference to the stereotype that gorillas eat bananas, and of course for the G in G Unit, which stands for gorilla. They rap over the beat from the Lil Jon and the East Side Boys song Real Nigga Roll Call from their album Crunk Juice. The funniest line on this song comes from the person rapping first on the song. "You G Unit Ninja Turtles cause your leader is a rat, scrat." That's both a reference to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well as the animated film series Ice Age, as Scrat is the name of the rat-like character. The second rapper on the song used the same cadence and similar lines to Hussein Fatal's verse on the classic diss track by Tupac, Hit 'Em Up. Then Game comes out the gate on his verse with pure aggression with the lines, "Olivia, get back in the car, for I smack you like 50 did Fredro Starr, and he picking the little niggas, is it me or is it every video Curtis Jackson get a little bigger? Nigga using that muscle enhancement, all I need is a couple dumbbells and a sandwich. Fuck holding a conference, I'll run the violator, hold Chris Lighty for hostage, cause Banks doing gay porn, come out the closet, either that or I'ma knock Chris Lighty unconscious." That's a reference to the altercation that occurred between Fredro Starr from Onyx and 50 Cent, who before then had actually worked together on the song React, like I mentioned prior. The threat to Chris Lighty is due to the fact that Chris is a co-founder of Violator, which 50 Cent was managed by at one point. The line aimed at Lloyd Banks happens to be one of the other funniest lines in the song here and comes across a bit random, but also you might be able to tell that Game seems to have had a big issue with Lloyd Banks in particular. Some say there was a level of jealousy between Banks and Game over the acclaim Banks' debut album, The Hunger for More, got. Also, there was likely competition between the two, as to me, and I'm sure many others, Banks and Game were the two best rappers in the group. On the next track, I'm a King, which uses the beat from the Pimp Squad Click song of the same name, Game doesn't have direct lines at G Unit, but the song starts with clips of 50 Cent and Young Buck from interviews. The track afterwards is perhaps the funniest, as it's an ode to Olivia, the female member of G Unit Records, and at the end of the track, the singer sings about how they found out Olivia has a penis and they're gonna call her Oliver instead. Throughout this beef, the typical way to diss Olivia was to call her a man. It's a bit messed up considering she's not even a rapper, and as far as I know, she didn't even do anything to the game and isn't even a member of the actual group. She simply signed to the label and been featured on multiple songs. The next track on the mixtape is a skit of pieced together voice clips from Yayo and Donald Trump, of all people, talking about how Yayo loves 50. Like calling Olivia a man, the common thing for Yayo was to say that he's the worst rapper in the group, or that he's basically 50 Cent's sidekick. Then we have the track Play the Game, which has Game back to dissing the group. He raps over the beat for the song The Next Episode by Dr. Dre from the album Chronic 2001. The song title is a reference, of course, to his rap name. Throughout the song, Game throws jabs at 50 for things like his hypocrisy with lines like, "Niggas hating on me cause I'm doing my own thing. I ain't Lloyd Banks, bitch, I don't share your brain. I was in the fast lane before the G Unit chain. You was hating on Ja cause him and Irv went pop. Now your ass running around singing The Candy Shop." This is a common criticism of 50 Cent, likely becoming a more popular one due to lines like this from the Game. People say that 50 clowned Ja Rule for singing on songs, but 50 also did the same when he put out songs like Candy Shop, which features Olivia. Then Game makes a mention of the original 50 Cent, Kelvin Martin, with the lines, "I got word from the wise, nigga you dead wrong, stole the real 50's name and wouldn't pay for his headstone," which is a reference to how Kelvin's mother felt like 50 Cent was profiting off his nickname, and 50 apparently offered to pay for a new headstone for Kelvin, which he, according to Game, had not done yet. Game also calls 50 a snitch with lines like, "Got niggas locked up, you a snitching queens. Told him tut shot Pac, then ride it out supreme," which is a reference to 50's songs Ghetto Quran and Many Men. This is probably another one of my favorite diss tracks from the Game to 50. Then there's the track Lil Bit, which as you can imagine has Game using the beat for 50 Cent's hit single Just a Little Bit from the Massacre album. Interestingly enough, this isn't the first time he used the beat for this song to diss G-Unit, as it was also one of the ones he used on 300 Bars and Running. On this track, Game pretty much redoes the whole song to make it a 50 Cent diss track. It's yet another one of my favorite diss tracks from the beef. The next track, MOB Freestyle, is a track by MOB which has them using the beat from Mobb Deep's song Quiet Storm. The song starts with a phone recording from Nas, who 50 Cent was beefing with as well. Up next is the track Why You Smell Like That, which starts from a phone recording from Fat Joe, who like Nas was also embroiled in a beef with 50. The track features Cicero, Eastwood, and Technique, and they once again dish G-Unit with the typical threats of violence. Also on the track, Game makes a reference to the G-Unit song I Smell Pussy, which was a Murder Inc. diss track from the Beg for Mercy album. On the next track, Street Music, they take the first verse of Sheek Louch's song Street Music from his second solo album titled After Taxes, which was released later that year. On Game's verse, he again takes shots at the crew by saying that Banks is a wankster, Yayo is doing homosexual things with 50, and Olivia is the man once again. Then on the track Swallow That Slug, Charlie Baltimore does her own version of the hit single Holla Back Girl by Gwen Stefani and sends a shot at G-Unit as well. Then we have another one of my favorite diss tracks from the mixtape, Game's Hate It or Love It remix. Once again, he uses the same beat as the track and just flips the lines around to make it into a G-Unit diss track. This was a good year for hip hop considering we got 3 versions of Hate It or Love It. The original version that was on the documentary, the G-Unit remix which was on the Massacre, and the Street remix which was featured on You Know What It Is Volume 3. Throughout the track, Game once again calls 50 a snitch with lines like, "Walk around town every day in that snitch coat, put niggas behind bars but homie that ain't dope. Now he toss and turn in his sleep at night, wake up in the morning watch Cops in Miami Vice. Different days, same snitch, ain't nothing good in the hood. He'd run away from New York and never come back if he could." Then on the third verse, he seems to make a reference to supporting G-Unit in their beef with Joe Budden with the lines, "Told Dre from the gate I'd carry the heat for you. First mixtape song I inherited beef for you. Gritted my teeth for you. G for you. Put Compton on my back when you was in need of soldiers." On his previous mixtape, You Know What It Is Volume 2, the first track after the intro is 200 Bars and Running, on which he disses Joe Budden. I covered the beef between G-Unit and Joe Budden previously, so check that out after this if you haven't yet. On the next track, Lay Low featuring Technique, he and Game take shots at G-Unit, Tony Yayo mainly. They rap over the beat from the Snoop Dogg single Lay Low featuring Nate Dogg, Butch Cassidy, The East Siders, and Master P from Snoop's 5th album, The Last Meal. On the chorus, Game interpolates the chorus from Nate Dogg's on Lay Low, dissing Yayo and calling G-Unit snitches once again. Later that year, G-Unit released mixtapes which featured tracks taking shots at the Game. For example, on the Young Buck track, They Taking Pictures, from the Return of the Mixtape Millionaire, G-Unit Radio Part 13, Young Buck has a line saying Game isn't coming back to G-Unit. Then on Back to Business, G-Unit Radio Part 14, on the track Emotional, 50 Cent disses Game on the outro. He mocks Game for his tattoos and says he's like a disgruntled employee, which is a reference to 50's position in Interscope compared to the Game's. Then on that same mixtape is the skit No More Games, which you could tell by the title, of course, is aimed at the Game as well. Game also released the mixtape Ghost Unit, on which the title and mixtape cover are a diss to G-Unit calling them the Ghost Unit rather than Gorilla Unit, and they're dressed as the Ghostbusters, basically calling them actors. On the intro to Ghost Unit, they have what sounds like a white kid along with the game making fun of G Unit using the theme song from the Ghostbusters film. It's pretty funny, however the white kid then says nigga and I'm just like, why did Game allow this? The next track on the mixtape is Here We Go Again, on which Game mentions 50 Cent and Sha Money in the third verse and mentions how he left the group and how he's going to finish his second album without them. That leads me to a point that often is talked about with the Game. When it comes to rap beefs involving the Game in particular, starting from this beef right here pretty much, people really chalk it up to a publicity stunt when he's getting ready to drop an album. Like how he was beefing with Meek Mill before he released his album 1992, or how he was beefing with Eminem before he released his album Drillmatic Heart vs. Mind. This is probably what we could say is the biggest and maybe the first example of that. At this time, Game was working on his next album, The Doctor's Advocate, which I'll be getting to in a little bit. For now, let's get back to Ghost Unit. The next track is Mr. Potato Head, which is a response to Game's portrayal in the Piggy Bank music video, and Tony Yayo also referring to Game as Mr. Potato Head. Game raps over the beat for the remix to Out of Control, which is from the Massacre album and features Mobb Deep, and the chorus of the song samples Stop Looking At Me by the Cutthroats, which features Guru from Gang Starr. On the first verse, Game has a nice theme going as he actually goes with the whole Mr. Potato Head thing, as he starts the verse off with the lines, "Look at what you niggas made, ain't that a bitch, created a monster, kick me out of G Unit," and then continues to rap from the perspective of a Mr. Potato Head toy, which is known for being able to attach different parts to it. Then on the outro, another one of Game's affiliates goes on a spree, calling 50 Cent a snitch and Olivia a man, as usual. I kinda feel bad for Olivia throughout this whole beef. She really got it hard, no pun intended. Next up is the track Crack Music Remix, which features the verse from Game that was allegedly removed from Ye's album Late Registration, as on the album version, he's only on the chorus. On Game's verse, he has a line mentioning the beef of 50 Cent. The next track is a remix of the Chic Luch song Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, also from After Taxes. Game ends his verse with the lines, "Nails in your coffin, leave them locked airtight, let him scream G-Unit with dust in his windpipes, drive him through North Philly, Brooklyn, and Yonkers, how it feel to get fucked all the way from Compton." On the next track, Old Guns, featuring Cicero, who was using the name Rockstar at the time, they used the beat from the Beanie Siegel song Feel It in the Air, and he and Game diss the Young Guns, while on the outro, Game mentions the rappers that he's had beef with, of course including G Unit. Then on the track Twisted, the singer Barbecue comes back to diss Olivia again, this time singing over the Olivia single Twisted, once again calling Olivia a man. On the track Oliver Part 2, he does more of the same. One of the ironic things about this though is that apparently Barbecue is a gospel singer, but he's getting involved in a rap beef and swearing all throughout the track. Then on the song You Ain't Crazy, Game disses Tony Yayo with the lines, "He got that thing on his ankle, we gonna have to catch him at Summer Jam, it'll be the talk of New York, I got 100 grand that say I'd knock all of your teeth out in front of fans," as Tony Yayo used to call himself the talk of New York. And the thing on his ankle probably referring to an ankle monitor, as Tony Yayo was in jail around this time and apparently spent some time on house arrest as well. Then on the track Coming from the West Coast, Game sends another shot at 50 on the intro. Then on the track Don't Ya, which uses the beat from the Pussycat Dolls hit single Don't Ya, they take a dig at G Unit on the chorus again. On the track Don't Body Yourself remix, Game adds a verse to the Nas track aimed at 50, and on that verse he adds on to the lyrical onslaught 50 was already getting. He again mentions the shootout at Hot 97 and continues to call 50 Cent a snitch. I see conflicting information about when the mixtape was released. Some say 2005 and some say 2006, but I am going with 2005. Same situation with a bunch of the other mixtapes we'll be going through as well. In November 2005, 50 Cent released the film and soundtrack Get Rich or Die Tryin', which is the same name as his 2003 album. After 50 Cent released the film, Game released a mixtape and DVD titled Stop Snitchin', Stop Lyin', which as you can guess is based on the title of the film and album. The DVD features Game talking about G-Unit and the people that signed to the label like Mobb Deep and Mace. For example, questioning why Mobb Deep got G-Unit tattooed on them.
And then I heard that the Mobb Deep niggas got G-Unit tattooed on them now and shit, but y'all Mobb Deep, you know what I'm saying? Y'all Mobb Deep. Do 50 got a Mobb Deep tattoo? Why the fuck you gonna go tattoo that man's shit on me? I don't got no G-Unit shit on me. I was the best motherfucking member in G-Unit, man. I got motherfucking Black Wall Street on my motherfucking neck, man. That's my shit, man. Black Wall Street is my shit. You know what I'm saying? So why would you tattoo a G-Unit tattoo on your motherfucking self if you've been Mobb Deep for the last decade, man? So, you know, I think that all Mobb Deep did was sour whatever street credibility they had left.
Also on the DVD, they drive by 50 Cent's house in Connecticut, and it also shows Game getting G-Unit tattooed on his arm, among plenty of other things. The intro of the mixtape is a skit mocking 50's film for doing worse at the box office than Chicken Little, which had released around the same time and made much more money. On the next track, We Are the Champions, Game disses G-Unit using the beat from the classic 3 6 Mafia song Stay Fly from their album Most Known Unknown. On the next track, 120 Bars, Game raps using the beat to 50's single Hustler's Ambition, the lead single from the film's soundtrack and one of my favorite 50 Cent songs of all time. 120 Bars is similar in format to its predecessor, 300 Bars and Runnin', and starts with an intro from DJ Clue stating that Game is going to dead the beef after he gets everything off his chest. We can see how that wasn't the case, however, as Game continued to diss G-Unit on the rest of the mixtape and even after it. He mentions wanting Young Buck to leave G-Unit and how 50 is jealous of Game with lines like, I tried to take Buck with me, but he stayed on the scene. Guess all I could do now is pray for Supreme while I finish my next album, 5 million and counting, anticipating telling the world I did it without him. If Aftermath was a family that didn't have a mother, I'd be Dre's newborn, you'd be the jealous older brother. He then goes on to reference his 300 Bars track as well as 50's beef of Ja Rule with the lines, gave you 300 bars and then said I'm gone, but I'm back, this is rap and a fact is a fact. They say once you turn snitch, you never go back. Here's a picture of Ja Rule. Motherfucker hold that. What goes around comes around. Get used to the gold plaques. Homie got cheese, but he don't feed no rats. He also mentions his beef of Eazy-E's son, Lil Easy, with the lines, and I got enough beef. Now Lil Easy dissing, he don't write his own raps, so I gotta forgive him. I got love for your pops, and I always will. So on behalf of Eric Wright, my nigga, you gotta chill. I'm the reason you new West Coast niggas got a deal. Yeah, despite Game having NWA tattooed on his chest and name dropping Eazy-E all the time, he was actually beefing with the man's son. Game then goes on to diss Mobb Deep for signing the G-Unit with the lines, like Hova and Takeover chewing out Mobb Deep, like Pac on Hit 'Em Up chewing out Mobb Deep. Don't one of you niggas got sickle? Fuck it, talk is cheap. When I see you and I'm gonna see you, I'ma strip you down asshole naked, and that's how I'ma leave you. Then I'ma find Havoc, make him walk through Queens nude. He then goes on to name drop a bunch more rappers like Snoop and Eminem, and then sends another shot at Mace and Olivia as well. On the next track, Stop Talking to the Cops, Game disses 50 Cent for snitching for the umpteenth time. Game uses the beat from the hit single Window Shopper from the Get Rich or Die Tryin' soundtrack. The funny thing about this song is that the outro by Fat Rat is longer than Game's verse itself. On his outro, he takes shots at 50 for being a snitch and once again calls Olivia a man. If you take a shot every time Olivia gets called a man throughout these diss tracks, I'm not sure you'd make it through this. Moving on, we have the track Testify, in which they use the beat from the Ye single Touch the Sky from Late Registration, and diss G-Unit once again calling 50 a snitch. Game doesn't have a verse on the song, but does the chorus, claiming that 50 testified on Irv Gotti and Ja Rule. Then on the track G-Unit Crip, they used the beat for the hit single Miss New Booty by Bubba Sparks, featuring the Yin Yang Twins from his third album, The Charm. Throughout the song, Game disses G-Unit as usual for being snitches. On the track AM to PM, Rockstar seems to send more shots at G-Unit and then Game comes on the outro again mentioning how he's tired of beefing with 50. Then on the track Gayo, Game mocks Tony Yayo for being gay, of course. On the next track, All I Need, Game disses G-Unit, this time using the beat to the Nas song Blaze of 50 from his compilation album The Lost Tapes. On the track Bounce Back, Charlie Baltimore sends a shot at Tony Yayo, calling him a whack rapper. On the track I Told You, Game disses G-Unit throughout the track using the beat from the 6-2 track Mentally Disturbed from the DOC's third album, Deuce. On his first verse, he claims that 50 lied about how many times he got shot with the lines, "In front of your grandma's house, right outside, nigga ran up on your shit and let off 9. And 50 knows homicide let off 9. You ain't died cause you only got shot 3 times. 1 in the jaw, 2 ins and outs. He was screaming, that's why they knocked his teeth out. I've seen your medical reports, you phony homie." Game then disses Mace for signing the G-Unit records in the second verse with the lines, "Mace, step inside the confessional booth. You turned your back on God, the devil got you spooked. You ain't murdered shit, you don't even got your own block, taking orders from a snitch that sleeps with cops." At this time, Mace had returned to rapping after initially leaving to become a pastor, and Game was pretty much dissing anyone who had signed the G-Unit records, like Olivia, Mobb Deep, and Spider Loc. On the outro of the mixtape, Red Bandana, Game uses the beat from the Joel Santana song Bandana from his mixtape Back Like Crook Crack Part 2, More Crack. Throughout the song, Game disses G-Unit on the chorus and on the outro, calling 50 a snitch and saying that 50 can't take him on lyrically. What do you think though? Was Game's 3 mixtape run full of G-Unit diss tracks proof that he's a rapper of a higher caliber? Game definitely had at least a few more diss tracks aimed at the unit, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. It's time to get back to G-Unit. Leading up to the release of the film Get Rich or Die Trying, G-Unit released Are You a Window Shopper? G-Unit Radio Part 15. On that mixtape is the track Simple Ain't It, on which Lloyd Banks seems to take shots at Game on the second verse. He has the lines, "Here's a little story I would like to tell about a certain individual perpetrating like hell. Well, you seen him round imitating legends tough as hell on his records. But terrified of my presence, it's ticking cause his career only lasts a couple seconds. Begging for attention, dropping a name in every sentence. A little slim punk from the other side of the water is a target intended for the slaughter." Banks doesn't mention his name, but given that they were beefing at the time, and he mentions an individual dropping names, it points to the Game. Later on, G-Unit released the mixtape Crucified for the Hood, 10 Years of Hate, G-Unit Radio Part 16, which features the track They Don't Bother Me. On that track, Young Buck has the lines, "And I don't need no helping hand from no other man, my name ain't Game, I'm really who I say I am," which is a reference to 50 Cent helping the Game. However ironic as it might be coming from Young Buck, as 50 helped him too, and everyone else in G-Unit at some point. Then they released the mixtape Best in the Business, G-Unit Radio Part 17, which features the track Murder Murder. On 40 Glock's verse, he seems to send shots at the Game as he has the lines talking about a tall stripper who got shot, which we can assume is a reference to Game, as he's mentioned on several songs how he got shot before, and of course he's quite tall. Then on the track Mr. Potato Head / No More Games, they diss Game as well. It starts with an interview clip from the Game, and then Young Buck on his verse has the lines, "Listen when I tell ya, I didn't even really know Game when I said his name on Poppin' Them Bangs." Poppin' Them Bangs being the G-Unit single from Beg for Mercy, on which Young Buck has the lines, "I hate when niggas claim they bangin' the gang, you ain't a Crip like Snoop, you ain't a blood like Game." Then on Young Buck's second verse, he continues to diss Game, making a reference to his appearance on the Change of Hearts show, as well as Game's alleged stint as a stripper and his beef with Spider Loc, who had recently signed to G-Unit Records as well, and is also featured on the song. Spider Loc on his verse disses Game with lines like, "I got love for the West and I'm ashamed of Game, and not because his album was full of famous names. See, I'm everything he wishing he was, but he's nothing like me. Can't you tell from all that dissing he does? It be all about publicity buzz, cause when they meet at the club, he be all about kisses and hugs. He threatened Yuck Mouth, but Loc, you ain't touch him one time when you seen him." Before beefing with G-Unit, Game had beef with Yuck Mouth, who, like Spider Loc, was a fellow California rapper. Also on the mixtape is the track I'm Not Rich and Still Lying, which has 50 Cent taking turns rapping in his own voice and doing an impersonation of Game throughout the track. On the outro, 50 mocks Game for the DVD that Game released and mentions that Game's brother, Big Face 100, said that Game lied about ever being in a coma after he got shot and that he was never in a gang either, which goes back to the theme of the song, Game being a liar. Then they released Rags to Riches, G-Unit Radio Part 18, which features multiple tracks aimed at Game from Spider Loc. On the intro track, Your Crew is Featherweight, which samples the line from Prodigy on Shook One's Part 2, Spider Loc seems to take a shot at Game on his verse. On the track LA Niggas, Spider Loc takes another shot at the Game with the lines, got to the hood like, yeah, I'm back, y'all, I'm active, it's time to get crackin' on Whack Wall. We do bitch boys like busters get done. Whack Wall is a reference to Game's record label, Black Wall Street. Then we have the track G You Not Killer, which of course is aimed at the Game. Spider Loc has the lines, you are not a Pyru, you are not a BG, and you just love hip hop and watched a lot of TV. You ask what's on my mind? Well, lately, math. I heard your 300 bars and it made me mad. You did a lot of diss songs and ain't say me yet. Must be having flashbacks from the day we met. DMX still remember and you ain't forget. According to Spider Loc, he and the Game met at a DMX video shoot and X saw them battle rap and Game admitted to losing. This is something that Game would refute, however, in a response track later on. Then on the next track, Like We Do, Spider Loc and Stoopy Blue diss the Game as well. On the track All Eyes on Us, featuring Big Psych, Spider Loc disses Game as well on his verse with the lines, Big Psych got me in the booth with the spirit of Pac. I grabbed the Glock and have these whack walls clearing the block. I love to see these bitch boys clearing the spot. For those that don't know, Big Psych is the rapper that was featured on the title track of Tupac's All Eyes on Me, and they used a beat from that song as well. Then we have the track Bitch Boy, which is also directed at the Game.
I met him battling for DMX, and what I think about his character has to be attached to this because he's not even honest enough to recount our introduction to one another honestly. We battled and I slaughtered him, murdered him, destroyed him. The battle ended because he admitted you can't fuck with what I got going on. And that caused us to become friends. Yet and still, when it's time to recount us meeting down the line, it didn't happen that way according to him. So, not that he's a bad rapper. All I'm saying is when we met, we battled and he couldn't fuck with me hands down.
Spider Loc also released the mixtape Bangadocious, which has a lot of the same tracks as the Rags to Riches mixtape, and also several rappers affiliated to Spider Loc who often take shots at the Game as well. On the song Start From Scratch, they diss the Game using the beat from the song of the same name from the documentary album. Another track is Put Your Back Into It, on which they diss the Game again for allegedly being a stripper. The title comes from Ice Cube's hit single You Can Do It from his album War and Peace Volume 2, the Peace Disc. The mixtape also features the track Coming Out of Compton by Eazy-E's son Lil Easy, on which he uses the beat from the Cameron song Losing Weight from his album SDE, and on the track Lil Easy disses the Game as well. Spider Loc also disses Game on the track I Don't Know. On the track Gon' Pay Me, featuring Young Buck, shots are also thrown at the Game, and they use the beat from the Jeezy single Go Crazy from his album Thug Motivation 101. Basically, the mixtape is full of shots at Game from Spider Loc and various other rappers in his circle. Then in July 2006, G-Unit released Hate It or Love It Verse 1, G-Unit Radio Part 21, for which the mixtape cover is a picture of Game as a stripper. Remember, around this time, it was rumored that Game had been a stripper before he was a rapper. Throughout Spider Loc's diss tracks, he would call the Game Doja, which according to them was his alleged stripper name. The title of the mixtape is of course from the hit single Hate It or Love It by The Game featuring 50 Cent from the documentary album. Basically, 50 once again mocking Game by saying, "Remember you got hit songs because of me." The mixtape also features tracks aimed at the Game. The intro is a skit mocking the Game for being a stripper. Then there are also change of heart skits on the mixtape which are also a shot at Game because he had made an appearance on the Game show in the past. Also, 50 does a bunch of trash talking throughout the mixtape on the intros and outros of songs, which you could say is also aimed at Game despite his name not being mentioned. It's implied given the title and mixtape cover. A few months later, in September 2006, during a radio interview, Game offered peace with 50 Cent. However, 50 didn't respond apparently, and then Game wound up taking it back, essentially stating that the peace offering was only valid for that day. Since 50 hadn't taken him up on it apparently, it was back to diss tracks. On top of 300 bars and Running at 200 bars, Game also had the tracks 240 bars and 100 bars, which were also diss tracks. On 240 bars, aka Spider Joke, Game uses the beat from the Tony Yayo single I Know You Don't Love Me from his solo debut album Thoughts of a Predicate Felon. He starts his verse with the lines, "Hear the breakdown, Spider Loc is a joke, niggas sound like Chunk off the Goonies, your life is a movie, you ain't a factor, you an actor, 50 gave you a script, went from running with the Bloods to a G-Unit Crip." He then has the lines, "I heard this after this, little nigga you suck, like your baby mama in the third row of my truck. Norvell, I whoop your ass in your own hood. You so hard, why you ain't put out that song about Suge?" Apparently, Norvell is Spider Loc's middle name. Game compares him to the comic book company Marvel and calls him a snitch with the lines, "Marvell Williams, a well-known Crip, not because he put in work, cause his brother a snitch. He belong in G-Unit, I'ma tell you the truth. This nigga's brother tell more than you." Game then goes on to talk about how he and Spider Loc met on a video shoot for DMX, just like how Loc mentioned in his own diss track to Game, and claims that Loc tried to copy his style. He then has the lines, "You G-Unit Crip used to be a Pyru, your name Marvel, all you need now is a Spider-Man suit," which is a reference to Spider-Man's suit being red and blue, and how Spider Loc allegedly went from being a Blood to a Crip. In the second verse, he disses Spider Loc again and admits that he lied about Olivia being a man with the lines, "I've been banging for 10 years, motherfucker, I've been a vet. For $500, he'll claim any set. Give him $1,000, he'll tat it on his hand. Damn, that's worse than me lying saying Olivia was a man." At least he finally owned up to it, I guess. On the track 100 Bars, aka The Funeral, Game takes aim at G-Unit using the beat from Lloyd Banks' single Hands Up from his Rotten Apple album. Like the other ones, he starts the track off introducing us to the breakdown. He then spends the first verse dissing Lloyd Banks with lines like, "Take it straight to the bank, call it Christopher Lloyd, call it mama's little boy or 50's little bitch, the rotten apple or the protege of a snitch, the protege of a bitch, nigga softer than Tybo kick." He then goes on to call Banks gay in the rest of the verse, and on the second verse he goes on to dissing Spider Loc again. Then he goes on to mention Jimmy Henchman with the lines, "Got a deal cause you sucked a couple of dicks and turned your back on Delani and Jimmy Henchman. Just take this as a warning, don't flinch, man." Jimmy Henchman was the game's manager during his beef with G-Unit and played a big part in the way things turned out, which I will be getting to soon. If you've seen my video about the many enemies that Tupac had, then you remember Jimmy Henchman and what he did. In October 2006, Lloyd Banks released his second solo album, Rotten Apple, which did not perform as well as his debut did commercially. Game used this as more ammo to diss Banks. He released the diss track SoundScan, which uses the beat from the Jay-Z song Kingdom Come, which is the title track of the album, which was released in November that year, and the song samples MC Hammer's Can't Touch This, which in turn samples Rick James' song Super Freak. On the intro of the track, Game reads off the SoundScan numbers. If you don't know, that's what they use to track album sales and whatnot. At number 16 is Lloyd Banks' album apparently, which he uses to mock Banks. Game opens up his first verse taking shots at both Banks and Yayo with the lines, "Banks, what you wearing all that blue for? You know Snoop Dogg, fake king of New York. You ain't Jay-Z, you RuPaul. You ain't hard, nigga, you ain't hot. Yayo, do your dance, show homie how to flop." Then on the chorus, he disses Banks, Yayo, and Buck for their album sales and goes on to diss Buck some more on his second verse with the lines, "Young Buck, when your album coming out? Nah, for real, go ask 50 when your album coming out. You niggas fighting over airtime. It's my fault that he pushed your album back farther than Clyde Drexler hairline." Clyde Drexler is a retired NBA player, and that's a reference to Buck's second album on G-Unit being pushed back. That album was titled Buck the World, which wound up being released a few months later in March 2007. Lloyd Banks also dissed the Game on a Rap City freestyle around this time as he was promoting his new album, The Rotten Apple.
You can put your money on me, he ain't no fluke. That boy ain't no Ice Cube and he ain't no Snoop. He ain't no Eazy-E and he ain't no Dre. He ain't no Pop, he ain't gon' pop, just run away. All this out the blue, this switch side as a punk I shoulda knew. Cause he was a rider from jump, yep. I'm one of the realest that did it. Anything you ever heard me on, I shit it. I spread the flow to the masses and he bit it. Got a teardrop, a ghetto pass and ran with it. I know a couple that a Lutter Fries hat, put a butterfly blade on his butterfly tat. You know me, low key, rubber slide strap. Play with me if you one hell of a summer. Game was a G on the groupie. If they made a flick about Izzy B in the movie, I'm in a beach house, palm tree and jacuzzi. Bad chick, me in a smoothie. Now all I got is heat and tough talk for you. Pepper spray eyes up just for you. I'm feeling like I'm gonna lose my cool sooner or later. All over a hater. Ain't no man more important than paper.
In November 2006, Game released his next album, Doctor's Advocate. Despite the title, Dre was not involved in the album like he was on the documentary, as by this point, Game was no longer signed to Aftermath or G Unit and was instead on Geffen Records, which was another label under Interscope. The lead single from the album is It's Okay, aka One Blood, featuring reggae artist Junior Reid, which was released in July. On the first verse, he has the lines, I'm the doctor's advocate, nigga, Dre shot ya, brought me back from the dead, that's why they call him the doctor. The math gon' drop him and 50 ain't rockin' with him no more, it's okay, I get it poppin'. Which is Game addressing how some people question how he would make it without the help of Dre and 50, who were heavily on the documentary. Then on the third verse, he has the lines, I ain't got beef with 50, no beef with Jay, what's beef when you getting head in the 6th tray? At this point, Game was also sending shots at Jay, but says there's no beef with him, although he had just sent subliminal shots at Jay in the second verse of this song. A few months later, around the release of the album, Game released the remix of this song, and on the remix there's 24 rappers including the Game, and several of them were also beefing with 50, like Nas, Fat Joe, and Ja Rule to name a few. Fat Joe and Game on their verses take shots at 50 and Lloyd Banks respectively. Game came at the unit again on a freestyle using the beat from the Jay-Z hit single Show Me What You Got from his Kingdom Come album, just like he did with SoundScan. Like SoundScan, this was also in response to Lloyd Banks' album sales, as on the second verse he has the lines, I told y'all Banks was gonna catch a brick, I left the group, you niggas been cursed ever since, I'm the one-man crew crusher, run straight through busters, finish my album without a feature from the new Usher. Then later in the verse he takes shots at 50 with the lines, I'm get rich or die trying, Curtis Jackson hot, no I'm not, I'm colder than the massacre, G-Unit was the car, I was just a passenger, let me out, I'll walk from here, I know my way back to fast cars and platinum plaques. Once again, Game claiming to be bigger than the group.
It's not cool to be the loyal dude. You know, I hear records where he says I'm at 50 a-hole. It doesn't bother me because I'm not a weak nigga, you understand what I'm saying? Nobody can get in my head and say, yo, fuck that nigga Banks, he got more bitches, or fuck 50, he got more money, or you know what I mean? Because I'm a real nigga, you understand what I'm saying? I don't pay attention. That's a disease. Hate is a disease. You know what I mean? I can't hate a nigga for no reason or hate one of my mans, you know what I'm saying?
Lloyd Banks had another diss track of his own that was featured on his mixtape, Mo Money in the Bank Part 5, the final chapter. Gangrene season continues. The track Showtime, The Game's Over, as you can tell by the title, is a diss track aimed at the Game.
The Game situation, I was there when he was in the C studio. That means you gotta go to the B then the A. You understand what I'm saying? So he was signed to Dre, but in all reality, if 50 never showed the interest, he would have been back in California doing whatever he's doing.
This is one of the more brutal diss tracks coming from the G-Unit side for a reason I'll be getting to very shortly. Banks disses Game for 50 writing on the documentary with the lines, newsflash, nobody believes ya, bumped your fucking head, developed amnesia, you ain't me, let alone a leader, yeah, you don't even write your own shit, nigga, you feeling hyper, go sit. Basically, Game getting too full of himself from the success, but forgetting that a large part of that success was due to 50 to begin with. which in all actuality is a fair point given the success of the album. Later on, Banks has the lines, "What's the matter, you ain't got no help now? They left you all alone for your meltdown? You crying in the dark and I knew it. Next time you think about killing yourself, do it, cause you a bitch ass nigga anyway you view it." Those lines are a reference to an interview Game had with XXL magazine where he talked about feeling suicidal at one point. Then on the outro of the song, Banks repeats the idea that the next time Game is thinking about killing himself, he should just do it. As someone who has basically been told the same thing before, it truly hits close to home. However, from a purely hip-hop perspective, this is one of the hardest diss tracks throughout the bunch to come from the G-Unit side. Lloyd Banks didn't pull punches, and you really get the idea that there was truly some tension between him and Game in particular with how personal it got. The executive producers of the documentary album were Dre and 50 Cent. However, for Doctor's Advocate, The Game and his manager James Rosemond, aka Jimmy Henchman, were the executive producers this time around. This leads us to another turning point in the beef. One day in March 2007, Tony Yayo and Lowell Fletcher, aka Lodi Mac, were riding around and saw someone in a Czar Entertainment shirt. That person being the 14-year-old son of Jimmy Henchman, as that was Jimmy's company. They approached the teen, and Lodi Mac held a gun at him while Tony Yayo slapped him, which led to them being arrested on March 24th for assault. From here on, things between Jimmy and G-Unit would worsen as Jimmy would be out for revenge. According to 50 Cent, Jimmy Henchman was a big part of the beef between him and Game.
How Jimmy Henchman felt. This is what drive how Game was behaving, because he also had his whole management team is going, yo, you don't need them. You got a whole coast. You got the whole West Coast. Like, you don't got to be down with them when I just gave him the record.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then he flips out. I'm like, oh, okay. But it is a reflection of, you see how the Jimmy Henchman thing turned out. Like, it turns into real street stuff. You know what I'm saying? So you're going, he was feeling that way long before Game said anything.
Their whole beef is a situation in itself, but things got intense to say the least. Tony Yayo years later stated in an interview that Jimmy Henchman had put a hit out on them and that multiple attempts were made on their lives, including Yayo's mother's house getting shot at. Back to the Game though. He released the mixtape You Know What It Is Volume 4, Murder Game Chronicles, in 2007, which features the track Gutter. On the outro, Game basically says F the documentary and that he probably won't even reach his potential until his next album. The documentary, of course, is considered a classic by many, but largely due to the help from both 50 and Dre, so Game is brushing that aside, likely due to their issues. Also on the mixtape, he has the track Haters featuring Tyrese. On the first verse, Game mentions 50 with the lines, "These rap niggas hate and they smile in my face. You rapping niggas mad cause the turtle won the race and the radio debate. What the fuck they gon' play? All the hot shit is my shit. They take what I say, play Scrabble with my words, put it on the front page. Then they go find a picture of 50 and Game, say it's East versus West, New York and LA." Then on the second verse, he disses 50 with lines like, "I'ma say it again, if I had one more chance, I'ma break all his ribs on my bare fucking hands. I'm a gangster, a fighter, you ain't, you a liar. You ain't got no pride, there's a snitch in the wire. Your fan base knows that your gangster is dying, so I won't stop until that wingster retires." This song was also released on a different mixtape as the song My Turn, using a different beat and without Tyrese, which is actually how I originally heard it, and that is one of my favorite songs by the Game. Also on You Know What It Is Volume 4, is the track Body Bags. On that song, Game takes shots once again at G-Unit. On the first verse, he has the lines, "Fat Joe don't fuck with you, Nas don't like you, so who they gon' blame when the long nose snipe you?" Once again mentioning 50's other beefs. Then on the second verse, he references the Tony Yayo slapping incident with the lines, "What type of bitch niggas put his hands on kids? Pull up that black van on his. We don't do the kid slap, we do the kid snatching." Then on the third verse, Game takes shots at Spider Loke with the lines, "Fuck the whole G-Unit, who lied to Buck? Fuck Spider too, now that's for big face. I know where you counting your sheeps, I'll have some Crips waiting. YouTube banger, tell me how that clip taste." Big Face is Game's older half-brother, who at this point recently had a situation where he was filmed getting punched by someone nicknamed White Boy, who was a friend of the Game. According to the Game, Big Face was actually defending Spider Loc, who the Game was beefing with at this time, and then Spider Loc wound up disrespecting Big Face because of it, which despite Face and Game having issues themselves, are still family, so Game clearly didn't take too kindly to it. Around this time, Game was not only beefing with G-Unit, but several other rappers as well. He released the track My Bitch, taking aim at 3 of them: 50 Cent, Jay-Z, and Suge Knight, although he doesn't name them directly. He starts his first verse with the lines, "Let me tell you a story about this bitch I know. Grew up on that south side sucking dicks for dough. Give her $50, she'll put on a show. Do anything to be in a Dr. Dre video." Those first lines alone are enough to tell you who it's aimed at. He continues on making references to 50, and then in the second and third verses do the same for Jay-Z and Suge Knight respectively. For the rest of the year, Game was pretty quiet musically, likely working on his next album, and G-Unit was releasing more G-Unit radio mixtapes. Then in 2008, it was clear that things weren't all good in the G-Unit camp as they released the mixtape Return of the Body Snatchers, This Is 50 Volume 1, which featured them on the cover minus Young Buck. In April that year, Young Buck was officially removed from the group, allegedly due to certain things Buck said in interviews, among other reasons. 50 wound up releasing the recording of a phone conversation he had with Buck, where Buck was crying and asking 50 for financial help. Buck came at 50 with a diss track titled The Taped Conversation, in which he disses 50, of course, for recording the conversation and says that the call was from a year ago and every man has emotions. It's a pretty heartfelt response and I respect it. Game took the track and added his own verses on it, dissing G-Unit as well, 50 in particular for kicking out Buck. He starts his first verse with the lines, "There's a G in Young Buck, there's a G in the game. Banks, yeah, 150, ain't no G in their name. I'm a certified gangster, fuck them wanksters." He then goes on to mention how he got kicked out prior to Buck with the lines, "I told Buck in 05 I could never stay loyal to a homo snitch nigga that's weaker than tinfoil." Then he mentions Buck again with the lines, "I've been fucking with Buck the whole time, chirp chirp the whole 9. You made us millionaires, bitch, thanks for the cosign." And on the outro, he tells 50 that kicking out Young Buck was a mistake, just like it was to kick him out. This does seem to make sense, as in most of the diss tracks Game has at G-Unit, he did mention Young Buck the least out of the 4 members at the time. In July, G-Unit put out their second album, Terminate on Sight, or TOS, which has Buck listed as a feature as he was kicked out of the group before the release. However, he was still signed to the label as a solo artist. Then in August, Game released his album LAX, once again with no features from G-Unit or production by Dre. So 3 years after Game was kicked out, Young Buck was kicked out and it's down to 3 members now. The two sides continued their feud, though not as many diss tracks were released between them. Game in particular would have a lot of back and forths within himself, as 50 and Yayo have said on multiple occasions Game would apologize and want to squash the beef, but then go back to beefing with them shortly afterwards. That kind of behavior led to 50 Cent claiming that Game has bipolar disorder. In November 2009, 50 released the album Before I Self-Destruct, which features the track So Disrespectful. As you can tell by the title, this is also a diss track, this one aimed at the Game, Young Buck, and his son's mother Shaniqua. On the first verse, he coldly strikes at the Game with the lines, "Your daddy fucked your mama, then fucked your sister, then climbed in your bed playing with your shitter. Go ahead, take your belt off and hang yourself. Matter of fact, grab your strap and bang yourself." This is a reference to how Game has mentioned on multiple occasions that one night when he was a kid, his father sexually assaulted his sister. That situation is what led to Game spending several years in foster care. He ends the verse with the lines, "Come on Game, you will never be my equal. Your homies shoot doors, my niggas shoot people. See me, I'm what you never gonna be. I'm in that tax bracket you never gonna see." Which is a reference to the 2005 shooting at Hot 97. That next year in April, Game released the mixtape The Red Room in promotion for the Red album, which was released in August 2011. On the mixtape is the track Shake. On the second verse, Game mentions 50 Cent and makes fun of him for the Candy Shop music video. Some months later, Game attempted to reach out through Twitter to make amends with 50 Cent again, sending out multiple tweets saying that he wanted to talk to 50. That apparently was a failed attempt as well. Sometime in 2011, 50 Cent released the track Love Hate Love, on which the first verse appears to be aimed at Lil Wayne, while the second verse is aimed at the Game. On the second verse, 50 has the lines, "You said you was gonna see me when your homie got shot. It's been a while, so I'm guessing you must have forgot. Once again, you forget, ain't this some shit? You forgot about me, bitch, I wrote your hits. You know how we do, hate it or love it, and nigga fuck it, I'm special. That's why your ass say my verse." How We Do, Hate It or Love It, and Special are 3 of the 6 songs that 50 Cent has writing credits on the documentary. The other 3 being West Side Story, Higher, and Church for Thugs. The line about Game's homie getting shot is once again a callback to the 2005 shooting that happened in New York after 50 Cent announced Game being removed from the group. So yeah, it's pretty clear that 50 was still not fully over the beef either. In February 2014, Tony Yayo took to Instagram to state that the group had broken up and that 50 wasn't rocking with him and Banks like he used to. This came after several negative comments over recent years from 50 about Banks and Yayo. Around this time, 50 Cent also left Shady Aftermath Records, so his future releases both individually and with G-Unit were no longer on the label, like his album Animal Ambition, which was released in June that year. Also in June, G-Unit including Young Buck reunited on the Summer Jam stage. Once again, Game was nowhere to be found. However, they were a group of 5 again, as New Orleans rapper Kid Kid, who had joined G-Unit Records in 2011 as a solo artist, had now joined the group as well. In August that year, they released their debut EP, The Beauty of Independence, that title likely celebrating their newfound departure from the major record labels. Then in March 2015, they released their second EP, The Beast is G-Unit. In February 2016, tensions flared again as Game and Lloyd Banks were pictured together while in Dubai. Game posted a picture on Instagram, and 50 of course chimed in as usual, basically stating that Banks was not loyal. In October that year, Game released his album 1992, which features the track 92 Bars, which like the previous Bars songs, is a diss track, but unlike those, this one is aimed at Meek Mill rather than G-Unit. I've covered the beef between Meek Mill and Game before, so check that out for more details. Also on the album is the track What Your Life Like. On the first verse, Game has the lines, "I listen to Dipset, want Cam and Jim to squash it, but how can I say that when I ain't made up with Fifth yet? I be watching Power while I bench press." Power of course is the show in which 50 Cent stars and is a producer on. Let's take a look real quick at all the rap beefs that these two went through while they had yet to make amends. Up till this point, Game also was in a rap beef with Yuck Mouth, Jay-Z, Meek Mill, Joe Budden, Razkaz, and more. 50 Cent had beef with Nas, Fat Joe, Rick Ross, Cameron, Joe Budden, and more as well. However, most of these beefs had been pretty much resolved besides maybe 50 Cent and Ja Rule, as that's just a lifelong thing for 50. Ironically enough, earlier that year in March, 50 and Game were seen at the same club and things were peaceful. Game even shared a receipt showing that he bought multiple bottles of effing vodka, which is the alcohol brand that 50 was associated with. Then in August, just 2 months before Game released the 1992 album, he was seen in a club with 50 talking, and apparently they had made peace. Game even got on stage and addressed the situation, saying that he rocks with 50 and that the beef was 12 years ago. So based on that, I'd say the song was recorded at some point before August and that Game had making up with 50 on his mind. Then later in July 2018, the two were seen together and talking at a nightclub in LA. Game's manager, Wack 100, would state later on to be the one that facilitated them having peace. That is a sharp contrast from the issues that G-Unit had with Jimmy Henchman, Game's manager, when the beef was really heavy. By the way, by this point, Jimmy was locked up for the murder of Lodi Mack among other things and sentenced to life in prison. In 2020, when Versus became a big thing during the pandemic, Wack 100 suggested that Game and 50 have a Versus battle. 50 even had an interview with Big Boy in which he stated that it's possible he'd do it, but only if Game isn't allowed to use any songs with 50 on them. However, the Versus never came to fruition.
Who does 50 go against?
I could maybe Game.
Right, and I heard that Wack was talking about it from what I understood, and people were saying that Game name has come up for a Versus with you. Would you be up to doing a Versus with Game?
You know what, look. Okay, you can't play no records with my voice on.
Then in 2022, things occurred that made things rocky once again. Dr. Dre was chosen as the headliner for the 2022 Super Bowl halftime show, which was held in LA. Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent, and Anderson .Paak all made an appearance. Game was not invited to the Super Bowl, which clearly rubbed him the wrong way. In interviews, he would express his disagreement with the choices. According to an interview 50 Cent had in 2024, he had a surprise appearance on the halftime show because Roc Nation did not want him there, but Eminem made it a condition that he wouldn't perform unless 50 was welcome as well. Around then, Game started his beef with Eminem, in which M mostly seemed to just ignore. In the middle of the back and forth going on, reference tracks by 50 Cent were leaked that were songs on Game's documentary album. One example being the song Higher. You can hear the same beat and 50 rapping the chorus that you hear Game do on the official version. Wack 100 in an interview around this time would imply that Game wrote 50's song What Up Gangsta from Get Rich or Die Tryin'.
When you heard 50 rap on the documentary, that's what he wrote. Nigga, obviously, that nigga didn't write shit for me. You niggas know I wrote 300 bars, nigga.
Right.
Was 50 there?
Killed them.
Hey, hold on, wait. Look, I'm gonna speak on something you don't never speak on. What up, cuz? What up, blood? What up, gangster? Who you think wrote that? I'm gonna leave it alone. Now he just don't be speak. Bro just don't be beating his chest, bro.
Shortly afterwards, 50 had an interview on The Breakfast Club and refuted the claim, as he states that they didn't even know Game until after Get Rich or Die Tryin' was finished.
Yeah.
What else?
They say all kind of stuff about, like, he said he wrote What Up Gangsta.
What Up Gangsta, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, bro. He wasn't even around when we did that. Like, that was before you even came into the picture. Like, that's Get Rich or Die Tryin'. He didn't even...
Come into after that.
Yeah, we didn't even know who he was till after.
Game's Dramatic album, released in August 2022. He had the Black Slim Shady track on it, which was directed, of course, at Eminem and was a 10-minute long diss track. On the song, as the title suggests, Game raps as the Black Slim Shady, which of course is his version of Eminem's rap alter ego, Slim Shady. He also makes multiple mentions of Dr. Dre throughout the song as well, likely due to not getting invited to the Super Bowl. Also in an interview on the Drink Champs podcast, he stated that Ye did more for him in 2 weeks than Dre had done during his whole career, which seemed like an unbelievable reach from Game.
I'm gonna get a motivation. You know, it's like I get his motivation to Ye, because that nigga is my Dre right now. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
You answered that very fast.
It's crazy that Ye did more for me in the last 2 weeks than Dre did for me my whole career. And it's not. It's what it is. And so that nigga got me inspired.
Things like this, of course, didn't seem to sit well with 50 as he started to take shots again at the Game on social media for slandering M. One example being in March that year when Game was seen on video at a basketball game and he and Jimmy Iovine walked past each other. It appears that Jimmy didn't even acknowledge him and walked right by, in which 50 Cent reposted a video laughing at Game. Then Game responded stating that he didn't even see Mr. Burns and that if 50 wrote his records then he should just write one for himself today, and that 50's rap career died and he ran to TV because he's an actor. Another example being Game trolling 50 by sharing a DM from 50 Cent's girlfriend at the time, Cuban Link. She responded stating that the DM, which includes a topless photo and phone number, was from 7 years ago when she was trying to be a video girl. In the midst of all the back and forth they had online, Game during a performance decided to stop for a moment to call out 50 Cent, saying how he still doesn't like him and if they see each other again there's going to be tables flipped. So once again, back to the threats.
I'm gonna tell everybody in here, I still don't fuck with 50 Cent, he a bitch, nigga. And it ain't no cut with that nigga. Next time we in the same place, nigga, shit get thrown. I don't fuck with that nigga, he a sucker, nigga. I'ma say it in Houston, I'll say it in New York, I'll say it anywhere, nigga. That nigga's a straight bitch.
On August 2023, 50 Cent had an incident at a show where he threw a microphone while on stage and it hit a woman in the head, and she wound up filing a lawsuit. Game went to IG to troll 50 Cent over it. Since then, however, things seem to have quieted down again for the two. So this goes into that catalog of rap beefs that unfortunately have not been resolved. So probably close to 100 tracks if you count all the rappers affiliated with them were released, where they dissed each other back and forth, at least one person confirmed murdered, and at least one shot, not to mention the other attempts made like the shooting of Tony Yayo's mother's house. It's not too surprising that this beef has gone on this long to me. This was a whole lot to cover. Keep in mind that this isn't even including the game's beef with rappers like 40 Glock, who also signed to G-Unit Records. Game and 50 are almost opposites in some ways, but very similar when it comes to rap beef. They find themselves in it a lot. The difference being that Game still does music while 50 Cent has slowed down on it to focus on other business ventures more so. January, February, and March 2025 marked the 20-year anniversaries of the documentary album, Game getting kicked out of G-Unit, and 50 Cent releasing the Massacre album respectively. These events pretty much starting the whole beef, but hopefully they'll be able to make true peace with one another at some point. As far as a winner out of the rap beef, you know me, I'm all about the music, so I gotta give it to Game. For one, he simply put out more tracks overall, and tracks like 300 Bars and Running are up there in my list of favorite diss tracks. G-Unit didn't put out nearly as many, and the ones they did were not very memorable outside of a few like Showtime by Lloyd Banks. Also, career-wise, G-Unit for the most part didn't really put out much music, only Banks really was consistently putting out music, but as a group, not really. Overall, career-wise, however, it would appear 50 has the upper hand due to his branching out into acting, producing shows, and the various other business deals he's been in. What are your thoughts on the beef? Who won? Which rapper is your favorite out of the group? Do you think they'll ever squash things for real? Let me know in the comment section below.